Everyone, welcome to day two of PL-400, which is Microsoft's Power Platforms Developer course. Today being day two, I believe we will try to continue with the session from the place where we left it in the yesterday's session. Now, a few things to look at first. I'm sure the resource hub link is shared in the chat, and the check-in phrase is also added. So make sure that you do a check-in to the resource hub. And I also believe we do have the labs related link shared. So do ensure that you um, redeem the training key, because that will let you work on the lab exercise. Right now, with that being said, I think let's quickly begin with the content. And the content is for day two, where we will try to focus on uh, the two learning paths. One is use platform APIs, and second, apply business logics in model driven apps using client scripting. So these are the two learning paths that we do have available to look at in today's session. Once we're done with this, we will call it an end, and will again resume in tomorrow's session. Okay, but the first learning path is related to use platform APIs, right? So again, over here in this particular learning path, we talk about two modules that are available. First is perform operations with the Dataverse web API, right? That's one. And second, we will look at perform authentication by using OAuth. So these are the two modules that are available in the first learning path that we will try to get a very good look at. Now, let's get started with the module, which is perform the operations with the Dataverse uh, uh, using a web API, right? So this is one of the topic that we do have available, where we will ensure we will try to get a very good understanding of how to perform the operations with the help of the Dataverse API, web API, right? So let's get going, and we will ensure we look at the module. Now, the module has a few topics, which is explain the Power Platform's extensibility options, then interact with the Dataverse Web API. Now, this is one of the module where you will look at understanding when exactly would you write um, code, right? Again, being a platform or um being a Power Platforms developer, you would need to look at understanding when exactly it is time for you to write the code, right? Sometimes the existing features might not provide you with the intended functionality, which would also result in not meeting the um, requirement as per your needs. And exactly in that situation, you will be able to decide if you are really going to look at writing the code, right? So let's go ahead and get to know few things in terms of the coding. So allow me a couple of seconds over here, and we will ensure we do um, yep. Um, I believe. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. What types of extensibilities are available, right? So again, you have an option to extend the user experience of a model-driven app. Then we have a Canvas app. Then we have extending the Microsoft's Dataverse platform and extending by leveraging the Azure services. So these are few things that we do have available, which we will try to get a very good look at. Now, there is a small video, I believe, which does talk about the most commonly used extensibility points, right? So allow me a couple of seconds. I think I will be able to quickly get this thing on the screen so that you will be able to definitely relate to it. And then we will also try to cover the rest of the topics with as much details as possible. Okay, so let me quickly get the video on the screen, and then we will ensure we um, so enable the audio for this one, and uh, let me enable the audio, and yeah, here it is. So let me quickly get this thing played. Okay.
In this video, we're going to look at some of the key extensibility points of the Power Platform that developers can take advantage of. Custom connectors can be configured to talk to existing APIs, or you can create a custom connector to talk to a new API that you create. Once configured, a custom connector can be used by somebody building a Canvas app just like any of the other built-in connectors, allowing them to visualize the data from the remote app or service. Using the Power Apps component framework, often referred to as PCF, developers can build custom visuals that can be used in both Canvas and model-driven applications. When working with Power Apps model-driven applications, developers can use the client-form scripting capabilities to implement custom business logic that can't be done with the simple declarative business rule engine. The capabilities of Power Pages can be extended using Liquid templates and JavaScript, including using the Web API. Developers can build bot skills that can be used as part of Power Virtual Agent to extend beyond the capabilities of what you can do in low code with a virtual agent. Power Automate kind of fits in the middle between something the user can interact with to start on demand and provide some input, but also it can be used for back-end service extensibility. Either way, custom connectors, just like they can work with Canvas applications for connecting to custom services, can be used from Power Automate as well. Probably one of the most essential tools, whether it's integration or custom logic, is the REST API that allows access to the data and services of the platform. This also allows access to the custom APIs that we'll talk about in a little bit. This can be used by applications to build integrations, custom portals. Anything that you can use an API for can be used to integrate the Power Platform and Dataverse into your application. Using the event publishing capabilities of Microsoft Dataverse, events such as creating of a record, updating of a record can be published out to the cloud, whether it's to a webhook, Azure Service Bus, or Event Hub. It allows taking that event and externalizing it either to another internal system or external to a partner. Plugins are one of the most powerful extensibility points because they allow you to hook custom logic to the event that's happening inside of Dataverse. For example, if a record is created, you can have your custom logic run before it's actually created in the data store or after to do additional logic. By implementing a plugin, developers extend the normal processing of the platform. One of the newest extensibility points to be formalized is custom APIs. Custom APIs allow you to create your own custom operation or message in the platform that can be called by others using the REST API or any of the services that front end the REST API. Well, that concludes our look at the extensibility points of the Power Platform that developers can take advantage of. In projects that you work on, you'll leverage both the user and the service extensibility to fill gaps that low-code makers find as they're building solutions. In the rest of this module, we'll dive deeper into some of these key components.
Right, so these are few of the extensibilities that we do have available now, be it you work with model-driven app, or if it's a Canvas app, or the Dataverse platform, or if you are extending it with leveraging few of the Azure services such as maybe Logic apps and a few other options available with Azure for us, right? So let's also try to get a good look at the developer options available for the uh, Microsoft Power Platforms tools. So we do have Power Apps CLI, which is one of the option available for us. Then we have Microsoft Power Platforms Connector CLI. This is second tool. Then we have few of the tools available for the application lifecycle management, right? Then we have Microsoft Nougat tool for Dataverse, and we have few community tools as well. So these are few of the options that are definitely available when we would be working with the respective coding, right? Or if you are going to leverage some of the tools for the developers. Now, if in case if you want to see the Microsoft's Nougat package, right? This is one of the link which you easily will be able to ensure you do refer to and collect. So let me just access this link real quick so that we will be able to have a look at uh, the content available in it, right? So just give me a couple of seconds trying to get to the link, and we'll make sure that we. So this is the link which gives you an option to install the Nougat client tools, right? And you easily will be able to install it for .NET CLI or Visual Studio on Windows, right? And you then will be able to work with the respective SDK for sure. So I think I should be able to paste this link real quick in the chat so that you will be able to look at it, right? So that's few options that are definitely available for us when we do say we are looking at the scripting related capabilities. Um, let's also try to talk about one of the tools which is using GitHub Copilot. Now, with AI picking up pace and Copilot being available in all the resources and services that you would use with Microsoft. We do have a GitHub Copilot, which is kind of a programming tool, and an AI assistant which helps you in uh, work with the Power Platform's compatible programming languages such as C Sharp, Java, TypeScript, right? So now you either will be able to use Copilot Individual, which is Copilot Free, or Copilot Pro, or you also can go for either Copilot Business or Copilot Enterprise plan, which is for the organization level, right? So you always will be able to review, you will be able to validate your respective output independently, right? So this is what you do get with the help of the Copilot capabilities. Now let's also try to get some understanding in terms of what uh, PCF is all about, right? So PCF, which is the Power Apps Component Framework, right? So Microsoft's Power Apps Component Framework enables you to create the reusable code component that you can use within your Power Apps applications and Power Pages websites. Now, the component framework empowers developers to build code component when the out of the box components don't fit, um, uh, and these components can also include business logics that component or complements the visualization to enforce rules which are unique to the scenario which you are implementing. For an example, an out of the box form might look like something like this. So I think I'll be able to show it to you, right? So this is the out of the box form, right? And let's say if you configured the um, app with a custom code component, then you will be able to change its entire view to look, instead of something like this, you will be able to have a reconfigured view, and you will be able to achieve a custom view for sure, right? So that is what you will be able to work with the PCF, which is Power Apps Component Framework, right? So this is what we do have available in terms of working with PCF as well. Now, there are few advantages. So Power Apps components are built on top of a robust framework that supports modern web practices, right? And as a result, a few of the advantages are you get access to the rich set of framework APIs. It supports the client frameworks such as React and Angular JS, seamless server access through web APIs. It has an option for optimization, performance, and for performance and reusability as well. So you have the ability to bundle all the files into single solution file with other app resources as well. So that is how you easily will be able to look at the capabilities, which is the advantages that uh, the PCF provides you with. Right now, let's also try to get some understanding in terms of the client scripting. Now, when we talk about client scripting, um, client scripting allows you to use JavaScript in model driven apps to implement custom business logics, right? So, client scripting is an alternative for when declarative business rules don't meet the requirements. So, client scripting runs on a model driven form in response to form events. So, the most common events you can use event handlers for are your form load or data in the column changes or when form is saved. So, in addition, you can configure a common bar or command bar button to invoke a client script function when it's pressed, right? Now, some of the common tasks that you can accomplish using client scripting would include get or maybe set column values on the form, or reference multiple controls per column, or switch between forms where multiple forms are available for a table, or interact with the business process flow control as well, where the client scripting would come in handy. Now, you also will be able to use the Dataverse APIs. Now, when we talk about Dataverse APIs, Dataverse provides two styles of APIs. One is the web API, and second is the organizational service. Right now, the web API is available as OData v4 RESTful endpoints, and the organizational service is a .NET Framework SDK with all the .NET assemblies provided by Microsoft, along with the typed class generator for your table classes. So that is what you will be able to ensure you do use when you would want to work with the Dataverse. Um, let's also talk about building the plugins. Right now, again, if we would want to work with the plugins are the .NET classes that would implement the I plugin interface, which is provided by the Dataverse SDK assemblies. Now, these plugins are generally used in the pipelines to implement some business logics within your event, right? So that is generally how you will be able to ensure you do work with the plugins as well. Now, these are few of the options that are available for you when you talk about working with the um, uh, coding or scripting, right? We also have custom APIs that you easily will be able to ensure you do work with. Now, let's try to look at a few of the capabilities that exist. So for that, I think what are few common tasks that you will be able to perform. Example, let's say if you are uh, trying to maybe um, access the Dataverse column data, right? So again, a Dataverse column is represented as an attribute object in the object model. So you can uh, use a get attribute method of the form context object to quickly locate either a specific attribute or all the attributes present in the form. Now, each attribute object includes some common methods that are available regardless of the data type, right? So, there are also other methods available for a specific attribute data type, example, text, number, and data. So, you will be able to access form controls, you'll be able to use the form controls, um, and you'll be able to work with the respective content for sure, right? So that's what we have in terms of the details when we say we are developing with Microsoft's power platforms, right? So let's also try to look at few additional capabilities. I think I should be able to uh, uh, take you through those content as well. Now, in terms of the extensibility options that exist, you easily will be able to create custom APIs. Now, you can either use again web API or the Dataverse organization service. Right now, let's say if we talk about working with custom APIs, operations in Dataverse are defined as messages. So custom APIs offer a code first way to define new messages that you can extend the Dataverse web service with. So these messages can then be invoked just like the system messages, but to execute custom business logics. For example, if you have a specific requirement to search for a customer using a predefined sequence of API calls, then instead of having each API caller implement that sequence, you could implement a find customer custom API. So the find customer API would now implement the required logic to search for the customer and return the result. So this would ensure that instead of each app having to figure out how to find the customer and doing it inconsistently, they could call the custom API that would process the search results the same way on each occasion. And if any changes are required, they would need to be implemented in one place only. So that is how you will be able to work with the custom APIs as well. Right now, let's also talk about determining when to configure or when to code. Now, again, as a developer, you should approach apps on Microsoft Power platforms from the perspectives that writing code for achieving a desired business application functionality should be considered as the exception to no code and low code approaches. However, quality areas such as maybe maintainability, upgradability, stability, and performance should also be considered when you are determining what is the best approach for a given scenario. Now, learning what Microsoft Power platforms can do out of the box is important because you don't want to build something that they already do and just need to be configured, right? So that also applies to the functionality implemented in the available Dynamics 365 apps. For an example, invoice calculations using variable multi currency price list is a complex task, but they are well implemented and they are time tested in Dynamics 365 sales. So if this functionality is required, you should consider using Dynamics 365 sales built-in capabilities instead of implementing your own calculation engine. So you should also recognize that Microsoft Power platforms often implements something in a particular way that benefits the platform. Now, this may be different if you are used to doing it in custom application code, right? So it isn't uncommon for developers that are new to building Microsoft Power Platform solutions to try to customize the platform the way they used to build custom apps previously, right? So let's also try to look at possibly the web APIs versus uh, the organization service. Now, again, we've already talked about this, which is in terms of Dataverse extensibility, right? You either can go with web API. Now, the web API is available as an OData v4 RESTful endpoint. Now, use this for any programming language that supports HTTP requests and authentication using OAuth 2.0. Now, if you want to look at few examples, I'm sure I will be able to show that to you over here. So there is a GitHub link, right, which talks about few of the examples for web API. So this is available for C Sharp, Net, C Sharp, JavaScript, and we also have this one for um, our in PS script, right? So you easily will be able to look at all these HTTP requests that you will be able to work with, right? So I think I should be able to share this link in the chat. So just in case if you would want to explore it, you for sure will be able to do that. right? So that's what we do have in terms of using the web API. Now, if you talk about the Dataverse organizational service, right? Now, Dataverse organizational service is a .NET SDK with .NET assemblies, which is provided by Microsoft along with typed class generators for the table class. So when the organization service from a Dataverse plugin, um, the service is instantiated and available to the plugin code without the need to authenticate. So to get an instance from your plugin logic, you would use the service provider that is passed to the plugin to get an instance the organization service factory uh, has. So using the factory, you can actually get an instance of the organization service. So again, should the code be written using .NET? If no, then you can use the web API. But if it needs to be written in .NET, then you would use the SDK assemblies, which is using the organization service, right? So that is how you will be able to look at these options for sure. Now, let's also try to talk about uh, a few of the additional capabilities that we do have available for discussing. Uh, um, uh, let's talk about the I organization service methods. Possibly this is again the extension of uh, the uh, uh, organization service. So we will try to cover this in as much details as possible for sure. So give me a couple of seconds over here. I'm just trying to get those details related to the extensibility, right? So um, yeah. So again, when we talk about the organization service, now this is something available for us with the CRM SDK, right? So it is a primary API interface used by the developer to interact with the Dataverse data or its metadata and business logics as well, which provides you with the methods for crude operation. So it acts as the core service for executing web service operations both in Dynamics 365 and in Power Apps as well. A few key aspects of the organization service are the interface purpose. So the I organization service exposes the methods to perform operations on table and metadata, typically utilized in custom plugins or workflow and external client applications as well, right? So that is how you easily will be able to ensure you do look at working with the I organization service. Now the I organization service has few methods available, and those are so each of the class that implements the I organization service interface might include additional properties and methods, and the I organization service interface has just 8 methods. So we have create, we have retrieve, we have update, we have delete, retrieve multiple, associate, disassociate, and execute, right? So if you talk about create, it creates a table row. If you talk about retrieve, it retrieves an instance of a table row. If you talk about update, now update, it changes the column value of a table row. right? Then if you look at delete, it deletes a table row. If we talk about retrieve multiple, so it retrieves a collection of table rows that matches the criteria set in a query, right? Then we have associate. So if you talk about associate, it links two table rows using a table relationship. We do have disassociate, which is it removes the link between two table rows using a table relationship. And finally, we have execute, right? So it invokes an operation defined as a message by passing an instance of an organization request or a class derived from it. So that's how we do have few methods available which you easily will be able to leverage. Let's also try to talk about the uh, options, right? Example, if you talk about create a row, right? You easily will be able to leverage. I mean, this is one of the example that is available for us, where you will be able to create or use the create entity method to create two or I mean multiple account records using two different ways to instantiate the respective entity, right? So that is how you will be able to create a row. If you wish to see how to retrieve a row, we do have that information also available. So retrieve account, then account ID, and then you are specifying new column set where name and account number that's retrieved, right? So that is how you will be able to use retrieve as well. If you talk about maybe querying with the organizational service, right? If you are planning on querying the organizational service, we should be able to look at those details as well. So we have query expressions. I believe I should be able to share these details for sure. I mean, more details on this in the chat. Give me a couple of seconds. Um, there is something called as uh, um, early bound versus late bound, right? Now, when you work with the SDK for .NET assemblies, you have two programming styles that you can use. One is late bound, and second is early bound. Now, the key difference between early and late binding involves the type conversion. So, while early binding provides compile time checking of all types so that no implicit casts occur. Now, late binding checks types only when the object is created or an action is performed on the type. So, the entity class requires type to be explicitly specified to prevent implicit casts. So, late binding allows you to work with custom tables or entities or columns, which is attributes that weren't available when you or your code was compiled. So that is how you will be able to look at the details for your late bound or early bound as well. Now again, late bound programming uses the entity class where you need to refer to table rows and columns. So, and if we talk about the early bound programming requires that you first generate a set of classes based on the table and the column definitions for a specific environment using the code generation tool, which is Power Platform CLI. We do have pack model builder build command, right? So that is how you will be able to look at generating classes for early bound programming, and we also have options for the late bound programming, right? So depending upon what you think is appropriate, you will be able to either go with the early bound or late bound. Now let us also try to have a look at maybe building the JavaScript code that targets the client API object model, right? So this is one of the module where we will try to build JavaScript code um, for targeting the client API object. So for this one, again, we will try to ensure we are looking at more details, right? So which is related to the custom scripting um, that would use the JavaScript related information. So I think we should definitely be able to talk about this. Uh, so let's try to look at the details. I believe, yeah. Um, um, now again, when we say we are working on scripting, right? So the scripting will give you an option to ensure that you are looking at the form event, and the form events are going to provide you with a few details, which is form on load or form on save, or if you are, let's say, maybe working with the column on change. So these are the three events that you easily will be able to ensure you do look at. Now we've already talked about the client side scripting, which can actually be used to get or set the column values, right? And uh, the client scripting API object model and namespace has a high level overview, or the structure, which would look something like this. So if you talk about the app, so it enables adding event handlers for any app level notification. We have client scripting for devices, which allows with consent access to device content such as image, video, audio, location, and multiple other things as well. We do have encoding, which is quick access to HTML encode decode functions, right? Then we have navigation. Now when we talk about navigation, it provides you with the platform independent navigation functions, including open dialogues, forms, files, and URLs as well. We have panel. Now it displays the web page represented by a URL in a static area. We have XRM utility, which is it's a collection of utility functions, including access to metadata and several context objects. And finally, we have XRM web API, which provides properties and functions to use web API to create and manage the records and execute your web API actions and functions as well. So that is how you will be able to look at the client side scripting. Now, if you would want to look at the details, right? So you easily will be able to ensure you are looking at the details in terms of all the web resources, the different types, which is the scripts that are available for us. We have JavaScript, we do have CSS, XML, the source such as images, which would be either in a form of PNG, JPG, GIF, or ICO as well, right? So these are a few of the options that are definitely available for us. Now, to be able to upload the script, right? If you are working on uploading the script to use the client scripting on a form, a script must first be uploaded as a script web resource. You can use the script web resource to maintain the libraries of client script function, which is either written in JavaScript or it is written in TypeScript. So I believe they are definitely mentioned over here. We have JavaScript, we also have TypeScript, right? So it should first be written in JavaScript or TypeScript, and you can use them either from within a model driven app form or from the command bar definition. So if you use TypeScript, you must transpile uh, it to JavaScript before uploading it as a web resource. Now, again, to upload the script, right? Um, or to upload the script web resource, you create a new form library, which is you add a library from the form editor. Then you will be able to specify all the details um, about the new web resource, right? You then select the type, which is primarily going to be the JavaScript, right? And then you will be able to ensure that you save it, right? So for a table column data to be available to include in the script's logic, make sure you've configured the form to display the column as well. Now that is how you will be able to upload the script. You also will be able to look at using client script libraries. So once configured as a script web resource, client script libraries can be associated with ribbon command and form events. To associate a script with a form, you select the form libraries, then you click on add libraries, which is going to take you to the JavaScript library dialog, right? And you can either associate an existing uploaded script web resource, or if you want, you can create a new one as well. So that is how you will be able to look at using the client script library. Now, associating the client or associating the script library with the form is only required once per script for each form. Now, regardless of how many event handlers you register on that form. Now, if you need to make changes as you are building your client script logic after the initial upload, you would return to the script web resource in the solution and you will upload the new version of the file. After uploading, you must publish the script web resource so the app uses the latest changes, right? So that is how you will be able to upload the script. You will be able to use the client script library as well. Now, let us also quickly talk about determining the event handler registration approach. Okay, so if we talk about the event handler, let's try to get some understanding in terms of the event handler that we do have available over here. So client scripting logic runs as event handler for form event. So you must register your event handlers for your logic to be executed. Now, registration for common events can be done now either um, uh, yeah, either the form properties dialog or from the code. Now, some events can only be registered with code. So event handlers can run on multiple form, but they must be registered separately on each form. Now, if we talk about registering through the form properties, right? So registering the event handler using from properties creates a static configuration of the event handler at design time. So each time the form loads, the same event handler runs. So unlike when you register the event handler with code, logic can determine what should be registered. Now in the form designer, you can register the event handler for form, you can do it for tabs, and you can also do it for columns. So if you talk about form, now the form handler allows you to register on load and on save kind of event handlers. For tabs, the handler, it allows you to register event for each tab on the form for a tab state change. This is commonly used to um, know if a tab is expanded. So you can do something like dynamically load the data. And third is the columns. Now, columns handler allows you to register an event handler um, if column data is changed, right? So if you look at this example, which is available as the screenshot, this is on load. Sorry, the event type is on save, right? So this is an example of on save event handler for the um, uh, table, which is the account table, right? So this is the example of the form event handler. Now one common pattern is registering an on load handler, and then registering the remaining event handler through uh, code in the possible maybe on load event handler logic. Now, the benefit of this approach is that when you need your logic to run on multiple forms, you don't have to register all the event handlers on each form. So that is how you will be able to register through the form properties for sure, right? Similarly, you do have an option for registering using code. Now, registering the event handler using code is possible for all handlers except for on load, which must be registered using the configuration. So you can then use the on load handler to register other handlers using the respective code. Now, if you look at the example which is available over here, right? Now, this is actually going to provide us, right? So this is one of the example, right? The um, example talks about registering an just give me a couple of seconds. I think I should be. Yeah. So this is going to register an on change handler, right? On the account number in the accounts table. So you create a function that runs in the on load event of the account form. Now in that function, you would call add on change, right? To register the function to call when the account number column changes, and then you register the onload event handler on the account form properties. So this code, I think once you run this, it is going to provide you with um, uh, a kind of update, right? So I think I just have just got it on the screen. So the score displays a form level notification whenever the account number column data changes. So that is what you will be able to ensure you to achieve. So there are many other client side events for which you can register the handler. I believe those details are definitely available over here, which I just have pasted it in the chat for you to look at. Right. Right. So this is how you either will be able to use uh, code or the form properties for registering these event handlers, right? Let's also quickly continue to have a look at the execution context. Now when we talk about the uh, execution context, right? So when creating these event handlers and using the client scripting API, you should understand the context objects available and how to use them. So the purpose of context objects is to give you information about the context in which your code is executing. So this context ensures that you don't have to hard code the information in your logic. So context allows you to create more generic functions and make your functions less sensitive to the specific layout of the UI component that you are working with. Now, there is something called as execution context. So when you register an event handler, you can have the execution context passed as the first parameter. So when you register the event handler using the forms properties, which is available over here, this is an option that you can enable, right? So the image over here does show registering an onload handler and enabling the execution context, right? So you check this box, it is going to enable the execution context. Now typically it is good idea to always have this option selected when you register an event handler using form properties. Now when you register an event handler using code, this option is automatically selected. So your function definition that takes execution context as the first parameter would look something like this. So you will see execution context already there. So the most common use of the execution context is to retrieve the form and grid context. Now, another useful method in this context is your get event source. So the event source returns a reference to the object that triggered the event. So this object allows you to write generic handlers that interrogate the event source at runtime to easily find out which control triggered the event, right? And this object can be helpful when you want to write a single method that can be registered on events on multiple controls. So that is how you will be able to look at execution context. Now let's also talk about the um, um, uh, client API object model. Now, when we talk about client API, um, object model, there are few things that we should be able to look at. uh, Give me 1 minute. I'm sure I should be able to talk about those as well. um, yep. um, so the client API, right? um, it definitely has the execution context, which we've just talked about a couple of minutes ago. We also have something called as form context. The client API form context reference the form or an item on the form, such as maybe some quick view control or a row in an editable grid, against which the current code runs. So you can retrieve the form context object from the execution context using the get form context function, right? Similarly, you also will be able to go for the XRM or grid context, which references to a grid or a subgrid in a available form. Now, let's also try to have a look at, I think, just allow me a couple of seconds, a few additional topics that are available over here for us, which is through the form context, right? I've definitely mentioned this thing couple of minutes ago, which is the client API, right? So previously, the item or form was accessed using the global XRM dot page object. However, in the latest version, the XRM dot page object is deprecated, and instead you should use the get form context method from the execution context object to get a reference to the appropriate form or item on the form. So instead of writing code something like this, I think I'll use a notepad to show you the code that I am referring to. Just allow me a couple of seconds. So instead of using where um, the first name xrm dot page get attribute, you would instead need to write the code using form context, which would look something like this. So instead of the above one, you would need to use the below one, which is form context execution context dot get form context, and then variable first name form context get attribute, which is first name is what you are looking for. So you can look at more information about the deprecation of that xrm dot page on this particular reference for sure. I just am adding the details related to the important changes that have happened and are coming to the xrm dot page, right? So you easily will be able to use the form context for sure, right? Let's also try to look at yeah, I think I just have shared these details, right? um, the form types, if we are looking at, right, the form types, you easily will be able to work on um, create, update, or read only, or disabled, or you'll be able to work on bulk edit. So these are few things that are available for our form types. Now, if you are planning on accessing the dataverse column, right? So just give me, yeah. So again, the client API object model is very extensive and is rich. Now, as you get familiar with client scripting, you will realize that you can use many API objects and the methods to implement your logic. So if you talk about accessing the dataverse column data, so again, a dataverse column is represented as an attribute object in the object model. So you can use the uh, get attribute method of the form context object to quickly locate either a specific attribute or all the attributes present on the form. Now, each attribute object includes some common methods that are available regardless of the data type. Now, there are also few other methods available for specific attribute data types such as text, number, data, and etc. Right. So, if you are looking at task which is access by name, then you can go for JavaScript, where which is a variable name attribute equals form context dot get attribute and then name, right? So it assigns the attributes for the account name column to the name attribute variable, and if the attribute isn't present on the form, then the get attribute method returns null value. So that is what you will be able to look at, which is access by name, or we have access all the attributes, right? Where you're using a variable which is all attributes, and using the form context, you use the you get the attributes. So it assigns an array of all the attributes in the form context dot data dot entity dot attributes collection to the all attribute variables, right? So that is how you will be able to look at this, which is access the dataverse column data. Now, collection returned by client API method have some helpful methods that you can actually use to iterate through the elements. Now, there is a detailed reference. I think I should be able to bring that thing over here. You see, so these are few options available for you, which is collection in model driven apps, right? So we have for each, we have get length, right? So you for sure will be able to leverage these. So collections in form context object model. So if you would want, I can just quickly add this thing as well in the chat, so that you will be able to look at all the collections for sure, right? So that is how you will be able to work with the access to the dataverse column data. Now, if you plan on using the attributes, right? So if you're using the attributes, there are few tasks that you can definitely perform. So if you want to get the value of an attribute, then you will be able to again use form context dot get attribute name and get value, right? If you want to set the value of an attribute, then you just replace get value with set value over here, and whatever value needs to be set, right? Then you will be able to get the current selected option object. Then you can determine whether an attribute value has changed. You I mean, change whether data is required in the column in order, um, right, to save a record. So there are multiple tasks that you easily will be able to do in the, using the form context for sure. So using form context and then using get attribute. So these are certain tasks that are definitely available for you when we are talking about using the attributes, which is either to get the values or set the values or change whether the data is required in the column, or control whether the data in the attribute will be saved when the record is saved or not, right? So that is how you will be able to use the attributes. Similarly, if you would want, you can look at access form controls as well, where you can access all the controls um, uh, for a specific attribute, right? Again, which is going to use form context dot get attribute, the name, and then controls which is to just get the details, right? Similarly, if you want to access a control by name, then form context dot get control name. So the first control added to the form for a column has the same name as the column. So each of the other control names has the index number appended to the name. Example, there are three controls, right? Then you will have the names name 1 and name 2 respectively. So that is how you easily will be able to access the form controls as well. If you would want to use the form controls, now similar to attribute objects, control objects have a common set of methods regardless of the type, and they also have specialized methods based on the type of control. Now if we are talking about these specialized methods, I'm sure there is again a detailed reference definitely available for us. I just have added the controls, I mean form controls, uh, in model driven app for your power apps, right? So you easily will be able to look at all these controls. Now if you would want to determine if the control is visible, then you can use get visible method, right? If you would want to hide or show a control, then set visible can be either false or true. So if it is set to false, it is hidden. If you want to show the control, then you set visible to true, right? So that is how you will be able to change the label for a control, which is set label. You can get the parent of the control, which is by just using get parent method. You can set the focus on the control, which is using set focus. So it sets current input focus to the account name column. So that is what we do have few of these details definitely available in terms of using the form controls as well, right? um, if you wish, you can use tabs and sections. So each form has collection of tabs. Now each tab has a collection of sections, and each section has a collection of controls. So you can programmatically access these elements and use their method. So just in case if you would want to show or hide a tab, so using form context dot ui dot tabs, you can get general and then you can set its visible to false or true. So the general tab will be hidden, right? So if you want to change the label for the tab, then again form context dot ui dot tabs, get general, set label as major. So it sets the label of the general tab to the text major, right? Show or hidden or hide a section, so which is set visible as false, right? So the it hides the section containing industry code column. So that is how you will be able to use the uh, tabs and sections as well. Now if you would want to talk about using entity data, now this is one of the table that contains the methods that you can actually use to get the information about the current records. So if you want to get the ID of the current record, you will be able to use get ID. If you want to save, right, again form context dot data dot entity dot save. So you can use save and close or save and new to perform the equivalent action using save and close or save and new. And if in case you would want to determine whether any data in the current row is changed, then you easily will be able to use get is dirty. So it assigns a boolean value, right? That indicates whether any column value of the form has been changed to the is dirty variable. So that is how you easily will be able to look at the using for, I mean, your entity data as well. Now this is what we do have available in terms of the entity data. Let us see if we can look at covering something additional if that is available for us. Um, Let us also try to talk about client scripting uh, versus business logic. I think I should be able to look at that. Give me a couple of seconds. Yeah. So, if we are talking about uh, client scripting versus the business rules, right? This is also one of the topic that I am planning to cover over here, right? So let's try to get some understanding in terms of the client scripting versus business rule. Now, if you are talking about power platforms, specifically for the model driven apps, business rules and client scripts are both used to automate the logic, but they differ significantly in terms of technical requirements and the complexity as well, right? So example, in terms of ease of use, we have business rule definitely available, which is no code and a drag and drop kind of a designer available for you. But if we go with client script, which is again a JavaScript, so it is a code first and also requires developer skills. In terms of performance, the business rule has high performance because it's lightweight, but the client scripting can impact the performance if the code is poorly written. Right now, in terms of capabilities, business rules have basic capabilities such as hide or show some fields, or set values, or validate. But if you talk about the JavaScript, just because you code it, it provides you with advanced capabilities such as performing complex calculations, running some API calls, or getting a custom UI altogether, right? Now, in terms of execution, the business rule is mostly on client side or the server side, which is going to be on the uh, table or uh, at the entity scope. But if we go for the client scripting, this is just the client side only, right? It which is on the browser. So that is how you will be able to see a few differences between business rules and the client scripting, which is your JavaScript that is available for us. Now, similarly, I think we should be able to look at uh, one more topic, which is business process flows and um, let's try to get some good understanding in terms of the business process flows. Now, you can help ensure that people enter data consistently and follow the same steps every time that they work with the customer by creating the business process flow. For example, you might want to create a business process flow to have everyone handle customer service request the same way, or to require that people get approval for an invoice before submitting an order. So business process flow uses the same underlying technology as any other process, but the capability that they provide are different from other features um, that use processes. Now, why business process flows are used, right? The business process flow provide you with a guide for people to get the work done. So they provide a streamlined user experience that leads people um, through the process their organization defines for interactions that needs to be advanced um, to the conclusion of some kind. So you easily will be able to use it for setting visibility or setting certain values as well. Now, when we say setting a visibility, right? So maybe if, let's say, a button needs to be displayed. Example, if the um, status of a particular support ticket is set to resolved, right? So if it is set to resolved, more details are not needed, right? So maybe you can ensure, depending upon the status of the ticket, uh, either the contact information is visible or not. So this is something that you will be able to ensure you do specify, which is with the help of a business process flow, right? So you will be able to specify these details with the help of business process flow, which is either set the visibility or you will be able to also set certain values to it. So that's what we do have available in terms of the business process flow. Now let's try to also look at allow me a couple of seconds to see if there is something that we maybe are missing, um, because we are almost done with all the important topics in terms of the today's content. But let me just quickly check if there is something that we may uh, um, yeah, most. Um, so possibly, I think a few coding standards and best practices, right? So if you are working with the apps, and let's say you would want to ensure that we look at few coding guidelines. One of them is to make sure that you use a prefix, right? Which is for your naming convention. So consistency in naming is the foundation for your maintainable apps. So for controls, use a prefix indicating the control type, followed by maybe the screen name and the purpose. So that's one, which is make sure that you use unique function prefix. um, Example, my unique name underscore the action that you are planning to perform, right? So that is one. So second, namespace library names, right? So ensure that you are using uh, the unique namespace uh, as and when wherever required, so that you will be able to easily work with the appropriate code. Now there are few best practices for coding that we do have available in terms of app design, in terms of responsive design, in terms of code readability, or your code optimization, or for error handling, or for monitoring and testing as well, right? So these are few things that you generally would be able to look at, right, in terms of working with the coding standards. Now again, naming convention is very important. Then the application structure, which is break maybe the larger apps into smaller micro apps, or use components for reusable UI elements. Try to use concurrent to run multiple non-dependent data operations simultaneously, right? For error handling, use if error or is error to manage the error graciously, right? So for canvas apps, use the with function to minimize redundant calculations. Possibly use invalid plugin execution exception to throw some user friendly errors, and also leverage your eye tracing service for appropriate debugging, right? So these are few of the things that primarily you should be aware of in terms of the coding standard and few best practices. And I think this is where we will be able to call it an end, where you will now be able to look at the homework. So we have three labs available. One is Power Platform tools, and second is Power Platform APIs, and third is client scripting. So this is what we have for the homework. So I would let you work on the labs that are available for us, which is lab number 4, lab number 5, and lab number 6, for the rest of the time that is available with us, right? But then that's what this is where we can say we are done with our day 2 of PL-400 course. So thank you so much, team, for joining us today, and uh, being with me while I covered the topics which were planned for day 2. The rest of the time that we have available, you can definitely spend on working on the lab activities, or going through the content that I've just shared in the chat. But then this is where we can say we are done with our day 2's content. So thank you so much for joining us, and I will meet again um, uh, tomorrow to take us through the day three's content. Okay, so thank you so much for your time, and uh, all the best if you're working on the labs, right? So thank you so much.